Manager Bradley.
Okay, we're recording.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. And
Mike Bradley.
Hi, Mike. We're
He's
going to
now
do a
joining.
roll call. So we'll do, everybody ready? Manager Waller.
Present.
Manager Winant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Present.
And Manager Pryor present also. Next thing to do is to set the agenda. Does anybody like to add or subtract from the agenda
Sure.
today?
Is now joining.
President Priner, staff have no adjustments to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll need a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as set. Second.
Manager Wageman, Manager Waller seconds. Okay, so any other questions? Any further discussion? Manager Waller. This is to approve the agenda.
Oh, yes.
Manager Winant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. So we'll move forward to the approval of the minutes.
Madam President, I move to approve the August 10th, 2020 workshop minutes.
I would second those.
We have a second from Manager Winant. Any further discussion? Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Winant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Okay. August
And
12th.
Madam President, I move to approve the August 12th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Winant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
And Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any question? Patrick, you're going to present?
Good morning, President Priner, Board of Managers. Staff have 5 applications for your consideration today, presented with no changes.
Okay. Any questions from the board? If not, we'll have a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda to Cap Rock permit 20-004, 20-044, 20-058, 20-059, and 20-068.
I would second that. Manager Winant.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Winant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Pryor, yes. Okay, so at this point, we're going to get into our public hearings. The regular board meeting is now recessed and the public hearing is open for the proposed implementation of Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management Project 2020-01 and for the adoption of the Water Management District charges for a portion of the cost of the Ramsey County Ditch 4 Management Project 2020-21. I would like to welcome everyone who has joined us this morning. Under consideration of this morning's hearing is the engineer's recommended implementation of the Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management Project 2020-01 and the adoption of the Water Management District charges to pay the local allocations of costs for the project. The purpose of the hearing is to review the engineer's recommended project, the allocation of costs and the basis of Water Management District charges, and to receive comment from those affected by the proposed projects and charges. This is an evidentiary hearing. The proceedings are being recorded to preserve the record. The order of business for this hearing will be as follows. First, Mr. Axtell, the district's project manager, will introduce a presentation of information related to the proposed project, water management charges, and overview of the actions taken by the Watershed District, bringing us to the hearing today, and a timeline of upcoming steps to be taken in implementing the project, if ordered. Following the staff presentation, I will open the hearing for public comment. The board would like to hear on your comments on the proposed project and the Water Management District charges and any information relevant to that purpose. During the public hearing, managers may ask questions of staff or consultants making presentations or commenters to clarify any testimony. In addition, if a member of the public asks a question, a manager believes that a response from the district staff or a district consultant can readily resolve the question or enrich the testimony, the manager may ask me to have the appropriate staff member or consultant speak to the question. I will exercise my judgment as to whether to allow discussion. However, managers' expression of their positions and general discussion concerning the subject of the hearing should be avoided during the public comment portion of the hearing. Board discussion will occur after all the members of the public have had a chance to speak and the public comment period has been closed. If a member of the public would like to make a comment at the appropriate time, please speak to be recognized and address the board when I recognize you. Please speak clearly, state your name and address for the record. If you have a specific question concerning the proposed repair of charges, we may ask an administrator, engineer, or legal counsel to respond. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the board intends to allow additional time for written public comment to be submitted to the Water District. Written comments submitted by 4:30 p.m. on Friday, August 28, 2020, via email to our project manager at kaxtel@racecreek.org will be considered in the board's findings for the public hearing. Board discussion will occur after all the members of the public have had a chance to speak and the public comment period has been continued. Board discussion may occur and be concluded at subsequent meeting as the board decides. To ensure all wishing to comment on the proposed repair and charges have time to speak, I may limit the time to any single speaker to 5 minutes. Please limit redundant or repetitive comments. Would any of the board members like to offer any further remarks before we begin? Any of the board members?
President,
not, go ahead.
I was just going to say Mr. Kolb was having some challenges joining us. I believe he is with us now. I just admitted him, so
Okay.
Thank you for the pause.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're going to turn the meeting over to Kyle for presentation. Mr. Axtell?
All right, Madam President, members of the board. First, I want to make sure, can everybody see the presentation screen, the title screen of my PowerPoint on your computer?
Yeah.
I can, yes.
You can? Okay, I've got a message here that says Teams couldn't start the presentation, so I was concerned about that. I want to make sure everybody can see it. With that, we'll get started. Again, we're here to talk about the Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management Project 2020-01 and proposed Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management District charges. This is a project that we've been working on. It's in the city of Roseville. And we'll start out briefly just by highlighting that this is a duly noticed public hearing. We had several thousand postcard notices mailed to all owners of property within the Ramsey County Ditch 4 sub-watershed on August 3rd. Many other notices occurred that day as well. We had emailed notices to the city of Roseville, Ramsey County, Ramsey County Engineer, Ramsey County Parks Soil and Water Conservation Division, DNR, Bowser, and the Army Corps of Engineers. We had a mailed notice that also went to the city of Roseville, Ramsey County, the county engineer, and the Soil and Water Conservation Division that same day. The notice was posted on the district website and distributed to our email notice list, as well as physically posted at the district office. The notice was also published as required by statute in the St. Paul Pioneer Press newspaper on August 5th, 12th, and 19th, 2020. And then we had an additional notice for the right-of-way agencies for the Water Management District that was mailed and emailed to the cities of Arden Hills, Falcon Heights, and City of Roseville, Ramsey County, and MnDOT on August 12th. So where are we? Ramsey County Ditch 4 is in the southwestern area of the Watershed District. The area in pink highlighted here is the sub-watershed that drains to Ramsey County Ditch 4. So we've got Zimmerman Lake, Oasis Pond, Little Johanna Lake there, and ultimately RCD4 discharges to into the south end of Lake Johanna, which is in Arden Hills. The majority of this drainage area is in the city of Roseville. It's a very small portion of Falcon Heights and a very small portion of Arden Hills that are within the drainage area. The area that is within the red circle there in the center of the screen is roughly where this project will occur. And I'll zoom in on this a little bit more with an aerial photo just to give viewers a kind of a what this drainage area looks like. It's largely commercial property with some high density residential or medium density single family residential sprinkled throughout there as well. It's a very flashy drainage system, very high and quick peak flows with relatively low base flow in the ditch. Ramsey County Ditch 4, if you can see my cursor here again, there's a main trunk which originates just south, right on the south side of Highway 36 in Roseville. Flows past through a pipe past Rosedale Mall and north. And when we get to County Road C here, it becomes an open channel. And so this open channel through this industrial area here is the area of the repair that we're looking at initially. But then that open channel does continue again through Oasis Pond and all the way down to Lake Johanna. There is also a lateral 1 that runs is the discharge from Zimmerman Lake, and that is very much contained within a pipe throughout its entire run, with the exception of some open space here. I believe that is owned by the city of Roseville. There's a couple of stormwater ponds in that area as well. The repair of this system has been contemplated in our watershed plan or in our 2020 watershed plan. It was originally slated for later in the decade, but I'll talk about why we're looking at doing this section right here in the immediate future. We'll start off with what the project is. It's a very simple project at its core. There's about 2,500 linear feet of open channel between between County Road C and Terrace Drive, and this project simply will convert that open channel to storm sewer. It's proposed to be an 84-inch diameter pipe, and that will match the drainage capacity of the open ditch as designed in that location. So I mentioned, we're looking at a repair of this system. This piece of ditch, this open channel, you can see some of the upper areas of the side bank here. It's very incised. Oop, went too far. There's a lot of erosion occurring, highly erodible area. Again, we get really high flashy flows from the commercial areas in that drainage area, very high impervious surface percentages between Rosedale Mall, the roadways, and again the dense, relatively dense suburban residential that we have. Again, it's highly erodible. Sediment accumulates largely in Oasis Pond downstream, but the flows are such that sediment and nutrients that they carry do discharge downstream from Oasis Pond into Little Lake Johanna and Lake Johanna. So this ditch does contribute significant amount of sedimentation and nutrients to public waters in the watershed, and it's been a problem area for a long time. We've had stormwater ponds adjacent to the ditch blow out, contributing additional sediment and nutrients. So it's really been a maintenance nightmare for a long time. We also have a lot of problems with trash dumping and in this area, and converting this piece of ditch to a closed pipe system will essentially solve nearly all of those concerns. It will also reduce future maintenance costs for RCD4 and also for that sediment basin that we maintain in Oasis Pond, so that doesn't have to be cleaned out as often. We also see, by converting this to a pipe, a little bit more efficiency of flow through the ditch, and we do get a slight reduction in the 100-year floodplain elevations upstream of the project. So that's a little bit more of a regionalized local benefit, but we do see reduced floodplain elevations for properties upstream of this project. Additionally, the right-of-way for this ditch is quite wide through this corridor. I think it's on the order of 130 feet wide with the open ditch in its current condition. That does impact those adjacent properties there in terms of what they can and can't do on their property. Converting this to a pipe would reduce the required width of that right-of-way, which again relates to, as I'll mention in a moment, some redevelopment that's occurring in the area. We also have improvements for public safety. It's a very deep, heavily wooded trench, if you will, in a heavily developed area that is redeveloping with residential, high-density residential development in portions. So there will be a lot of people moving directly adjacent to this ditch in the next couple of years, and public safety is a concern. Furthermore, as that redevelopment occurs, the city of Roseville has an interest in redeveloping this corridor as more of a functional green space or a park for those residents that inhabit the area. The open ditch as it exists is really not conducive to that. All right, so again, I mentioned the timing of this project was originally contemplated to repair this channel in the late 2020s. Again, ballpark of 2027 to 2029 was contemplated in as we developed our recent watershed plan update. However, there are two large pieces of property here that are highlighted in purple adjacent to the ditch that are undergoing redevelopment right now. This is considered, we call this like the Boaters World Complex, and then there's another industrial property here. And so the city of Roseville, in working with those redevelopments, reached out to the district last year to begin, the discussions about moving up the repair of this piece of ditch to coincide with that redevelopment. That gives us an opportunity to do that repair during the redevelopment, utilizing excess soils on site that are generated from those redevelopments. This will save the district, the city, all of the constituents that are affected by this project substantial amount of funds, and this project will be able to be completed with less cost than had we just done it on our own, after the redevelopments occurred. There will be remaining repairs that are required downstream of here through Oasis Pond and on the main channel down to Little Lake Johanna and Lake Johanna. That piece of ditch is also in very poor condition, and we anticipate, again tentatively, that phase 2, if you will, of the repair would be still scheduled for later this decade. So looking at the costs of the project, the district engineer has produced a number of technical memos, which are available on our website for review, related to this project. And we currently have an estimated cost of approximately $2.8 million, as shown in the table here for the project. Again, the primary cost of this project is the pipe itself. We're proposing a steel reinforced plastic pipe, 84 inches in diameter, and then additional manholes and connections that are required, along with clearing and chipping of the trees that are growing up through that corridor. So that's our cost estimate. We will note that part of that analysis, the cost and benefit analysis that was completed by the district engineer, looked at what were the benefits of this project to the watershed district and its the residents, the benefited properties, if you will, of Ramsey County Ditch 4, and there was a process to delineate benefits to the local area, to the watershed at large, and then other benefits that might be allocated to the directly adjacent redeveloping properties in the city of Roseville at large. The determination of that analysis effectively limited the cost that would be borne by the watershed district and its local residents in the water management district to $1.14 million. And so that is the portion of cost that the watershed district is effectively proposing to commit to the project, and that is broken down into a general ad valorem general property tax district-wide, which would come out of the district's normal budget of $690,000. And that's largely tied to water quality improvements and maybe some of the floodplain benefits that we see. And then the water management district for Ramsey County Ditch 4, which is that local charge proposed to be applied to parcels within the water management district, was capped at $450,000 for this project. And that primarily relates to the actual, cost of repairing the ditch itself and the future savings that we will see, reductions in cost of future maintenance that we'll see as a result of this project. So we'll talk a minute about the water management district charges. Again, it's a proposed $450,000 charge, and it would be split among all properties in the RCD4 sub-watershed, which is shown on the map here. This is a map from the preliminary charge analysis that was completed by Houston Engineering. And the charge amounts are determined by a formula, and that's formula is used to estimate, and it's based on the amount of runoff, stormwater runoff that's generated from each parcel in the drainage area. And that formula is based on land use, so whether it's a residential property, commercial property, et cetera, road right of way, and then also the size of that property. So what we see, and this, like I mentioned, this does include city, county, and state right-of-ways for roads and pedestrian trails. There are a few types of property that are exempted from the charge. Largely that's parkland. There's a few parkland parcels, and then there's also some parcels out there that are strictly set aside for stormwater management practices. And so what we see ultimately is a typical single-family home in this drainage area sees a proposed charge of $40 to $60, and that charge would be collected through the property taxes collected by Ramsey County, and that would be smaller charges like that under $300 would be collected in a single year next year in 2021, and then larger charges, which typically we see on again the larger commercial properties like Rosedale Mall and some others. Those are going to be split into 3 equal charges in the years of 2021, 22, and 23. Some of the history highlights here, talk about briefly how we got to this point. Again, I mentioned last year in July, the city of Roseville formally requested that the district consider moving up the timeline for this piece of the RCD4 repair, again, between County Road C and Terrace Drive. Since that time, district staff and city staff have been working diligently with the district watershed district board of managers to make sure first that this was something that we wanted to do, that it made sense to do it, and was financially and fiscally sound. We've gotten to that point now. Last September, the board adopted Resolution 2019-25, which directed proceedings to reestablish and correct the drainage system record for RCD4. We had undertaken a historical review, I believe, starting back in 2018, in preparation for future repair of the ditch. And so we needed to get those formal proceedings underway, again, which have been completed at this time, to get the drainage system record corrected. We adopted our new watershed plan, our 2020 watershed plan, in April of 2020, just earlier this year. And again, as I mentioned, that watershed plan does include repair of RCD4 within the capital improvement program. Resolution 2020-17 was adopted in May 27th, which was the board establishing findings in an order correcting that drainage system record for RCD4, and that allowed us to know what is the profile officially and capacities so that we could actually design a repair. July of this year, the city of Roseville and Rice Creek Watershed District entered into a cooperative agreement governing some of the fiscal responsibilities and on-the-ground responsibilities for this project. We'll touch on that again here in a moment, who's doing what as this project is executed. And then you're here today in August hosting our public hearing, again, to review the project and receive comment on the proposed water management district charges. Moving forward, in September next month, the district board will be adopting its 2021 preliminary budget and levy. Currently, that does include certification of water management district charges, as I've described, for Ramsey County Ditch 4. And those charges would be collected. It's approximately half of the charges collected in 2021, and then remaining 25% in 22 and 23. Again, for most residents in the district, it'll be a one-time charge in 2021. Later this fall, we will be looking for the city of Roseville to submit a petition to Rice Creek for a transfer of a portion of the main trunk of RCD4 and the entirety of lateral 1 of RCD4 from Rice Creek to the city of Roseville. And I'll run through this timeline and I'll talk about why that's important. Later this winter, our district engineer, we will be completing the plans and specifications for the project and delivering those plans to Roseville. And the city will actually be undertaking the bidding process and overseeing construction of the project. And that relates to the transfer that I mentioned earlier. I'll touch back on that again in a moment. Spring next year is when we plan. We anticipate that this project will begin construction. And again, once, be clear to any residents watching, once construction starts, again, the city of Roseville will be the day-to-day operator. So the city will be the ones to field any questions or concerns about construction as it's underway. And then, as I mentioned earlier, again, later this decade, provided the Watershed District Board directs proceedings for a repair, we anticipate future phase 2 of repair on Ramsey County Ditch 4 downstream of Terrace Drive to the lakes, Little Lake Johanna and Lake Johanna. And so one thing that's important, I want to step back again and talk about the transfer here. A good portion of Ramsey County Ditch 4, and I'm actually going to step back a couple slides to one of our maps so I can talk about this a little more. All these areas that are blue and black dashed, these are all, and then this section that will be repaired, and all of this in lateral 1 is all currently in storm sewer. Rice Creek Watershed District, the vast majority of our public drainage systems that we manage are open ditches or small tile systems up in Anoka and Washington counties. And these are really major storm sewer, trunk storm sewer pipes. They're not systems that our staff that is really well equipped to inspect. We don't have equipment on hand to deal with these systems readily. So it's whereas the city of Roseville does, and in this case, this whole portion of the ditch is all wholly contained within the city of Roseville. And so in talking with the city, it really makes more sense for the long-term maintenance, inspection, and operation of really these core drainage systems here. It makes sense for the city of Roseville to be the day-to-day operator and responsible party. If there's a problem, they have equipment and public works staff, they can address those concerns or problems quickly. And so kind of one of the part of that cooperative agreement I mentioned would look for the city to request or petition the district to transfer the maintenance and essentially day-to-day ownership and operation of the, not ownership, but operation of the system to the city. And we feel, again, that would be a much better situation for this drainage system moving forward. The Watershed District would maintain and continue to operate and inspect the downstream portion of RCD4, basically from Terrace Drive here, this open channel through Oasis Pond and downstream to the lake. So we're not completely leaving the neighborhood, but would be, the city of Roseville will take on a much more active role in maintaining that system. So again, just wanted to touch on that so folks were aware of that scenario moving forward. Drainage rights that all of the residents and property owners in the area have today will be maintained. The system has to be maintained to preserve those drainage rights, so nothing changes there. It's just a transfer of again, which agency is handling that from a day-to-day basis. I believe that is all I have for the public hearing. Again, and turn it back over to President Priner for the remainder of the hearing.
Thank you, Kyle. Do any of the board members have questions for staff or consultants before we begin with the public? Any of the board members? With that, we're ready to hear from the members of the public who wish to comment. Again, please state your name and address for the record as you begin your comments today. Anybody from the public? Anybody from the public that'd like to comment? One more time, anybody from the public? Okay, with that, we are going to, if there's no further testimony from the public at this time, I close the public comment portion of the hearing, allowing for additional written statements from the public to be submitted to the district through 4:30 p.m. on Friday, August 28th, 2020. Please send comments to the district via email of kaxtell@ricecreek.org. Okay, at this point, we're invite discussion from the board, and we're looking for guidance. I believe it's a number 4 of our information. Any comments from the board? Do we have guidance for the staff today?
Madam President, I will add, just for the record as well, we do have a series of written comments that have been provided to the district to date. Many of those comments were from residents, questions about the project, which I've already responded to, directly to those residents. The Ramsey County has also submitted a comment specifically asking for a consideration of a reduction in the charge to the parcel within RCD4 where the Roseville branch library sits, and they're trying to find this in the packet here, but the rationale being that that site was redeveloped in 2010 with extensive stormwater management features added to the site, and so again, that is something that the district engineer will be taking a look at as we prepare findings for you moving forward. But they may, we'll be considering that and making a recommendation to the board as to whether or not that charge on that particular parcel could be reduced. And again, all those comments will be addressed in the findings that we have received to date. So,
Madam Chair,
Manager
this is Janet. My comment would be is that the staff and engineers have done a very thorough job over the course of the last 6 to 9 months, keeping the board updated on all these actions. So for the record, we as a board have seen much of this information, not all this information prior to the presentation today.
Could I ask the board, has everybody received the information on the public hearing that we just went through? Because there is a recommendation on page 4 to make a motion.
Yes, there is. So, Madam Chair, I would move that we direct staff to prepare findings and order consistent with the proceedings, including responses to all comments received through the public comment process. That the draft findings and order be written to affect the implementation of RCD4 Water Management Project 2020-1, according to the engineer's recommendation, and to the establishment and to establish water management district charges according to the charge and cost allocation analysis, and that we recess this hearing to the board's regular meeting on September 9th, 2020 at 9 a.m., to which meeting we will consider findings and an order for the proposed project and establishment of the water management district charges.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Manager Waller. Any further discussion? If not, we're going to call the vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman? Steve?
I apologize, I was on mute. Yes.
Okay, and Manager Kreiner, yes. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead. The public hearing is recessed. The next thing is the public hearing on proposed 2021 budget and levy. And so, let's see here, we recess, and we're going to go to our next public hearing, the Rice Creek Watershed District's proposed 2021 budget and levy, including the watershed-wide property tax levy and special levies for the Nook County Ditch 31 Nook County Ditch 31 Water Management District, Noka County Ditch 46 Water Management District, and the Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management District. The purpose of the hearing is to hear comments and take input from the parties having interest in the proposed 2021 budget and levy. The levy will include a property tax levy for all properties located within the watershed district. It will also include additional levies on the 3 watershed management districts, the Noka County Ditch 31 Water Management District, Anoka County Ditch 46 Water Management District, and the Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management District. The board has just held a public hearing on the question of establishing Ramsey Ditch 4 Water Management District. Before we adopt the district's 2021 budget and levy, we will consider whether to establish Ramsey County 4 Ditch Water Management District. The budget summary that staff will present today reflects a proposed 2021 work plan for the Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management District based on the assumption that the board does decide to establish the district. Of course, a budget and levy of the County Ditch 4 Water Management District will be adopted only if the board approves. The board has acted favorably on this question and has established the Water Management District. So we will ask Administrator Tomzek to provide the summary of the 2021 budget and levy impact, as well as the individual Water Management District budgets and impacts. Okay, Nick.
Thank you, President Priner. I will share my screen here. Whoops. Not that. There we go. I'd ask if you can all see that.
Yes.
Thank you. President Priner, thank you for the introduction. I'll note here, I am on page 73 of the district packet. This page illustrates the duly noticed public hearing, identifies the various newspapers on which this public hearing was noticed. It includes the district also posted on the district website, posted physically at the office, and then shared as well to our email noticing procedures. Moving on, in page 74 of the packet, you'll see this document illustrating the budget and the various funds and the associated values for it. These are the highlights of the proposed 2021 budget. Certainly you recall that in 2020, the district adopted its watershed management plan. This provides the resource management guidance to the district and establish our funding goals and limits for our projects and programs. It also establishes a framework and guidance in the development of the district's annual budget, and also an attentiveness to our long-range fiscal frame. The watershed management plan is not a definitive as to the annual district budget, but it is a foundation to it. Here I will give you highlights from each of the various funds and the intended use for them. So starting at the top there, Fund 10 is the general administration. This includes the managers, staff, set up our building, vehicles, computers, copier, phones, and all those like materials for our operations. Moving on to the second fund, 30, communications and outreach. This is the district outreach and through newsletters, all the way through its communications with legislators at the state.
Mark Culver
is now joining.
To communicate the district board position, and this is to establish as well and maintain relationships with our partners, and have a unified voice to the public in our messaging with our partners. Within this fund, right here, 3006 is engineering and technical support. While it notes it's new, it's actually relocated to this fund. Previously, this would have come out of our ditch fund. And this is basically for greater transparency, that there is engineering and technical support to the communication program in the formation of documents and maps and that sort of thing, as well as our city-county partner meeting. Moving down to Fund 35, which is the district's information management. For 2021, we will finish the investigation and statutory process for Ramsey County boundary. The district had entered into a review of its boundary. We're working in the Anoka County area right now, moving on to Ramsey County in the near future. There includes funds for the district-wide model. That is an annual update and maintenance of that system. It provides for floodplain assistance to the municipalities, conversion of the model into formats that are easily utilized by our partners. It also includes an intended flood study on Anoka County Ditch 102232. It provides for updates in our GIS layers of our viewer system of the properties in the district, and as well as implementation of the district website project that we'll be moving into here in the later part of the year. Fund 60, restoration management and planning, includes monies for Centerville Lake backflow study with Peltier Lake. We recently discussed that at our workshop. Includes finishing the Lower Rice Creek project and ensuring stability there from the work, and also implementation of any projects in the contributing area to Lower Rice Creek. Middle Rice Creek has a similar program in which we can engage our partners, such as the City of Blaine, and those contributing waters. Includes funding to begin phase 4 of Ramsey County Ditch 2, 3, and 5 projects. This is a program which the district has put forth a lot of effort to alleviate localized flooding and working with the municipalities in that area. Step 4 is implementation of the engineering, the funding, the lobbying, and start some dedicated savings to these future projects. The funding includes Golden Lake, some planning and outreach for a potential future alm treatment on that lake. Moving on from there, work with our partners on such things as pervious surfaces or water reuse. You'll recall, I think it was White Bear Township was looking at pervious surfaces for their alleys, and some of that kind of planning would be included here. So includes continuation of support for our municipal projects. It looks at Ramsey County Ditch 4 project that we just held the public hearing on. Planning for hotspots in stormwater development. That is such as what's currently underway with Forest Lake, where they're studying the developing areas on the public drainage system and how stormwater might be well managed there. Includes funds also for smart sensing equipment for irrigation, working in areas such as of Washington County. They have a groundwater plan and the interests that we share. Moving on to Fund 70. Can you still see the screen? Mine went
Yes.
blank.
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody?
All right, my screen froze, but I'll trust for now that you can see Fund 70. Fund 70 is the regulatory program, so it's a continuation of our efforts to review new and reconstruction development throughout the district, and also adjusting and developing guidance documents as we move through our current rule revision efforts. Next fund, public drainage system and creek maintenance, that's Fund 80. We will be looking to develop the final plans on Anoki County Ditch 5362 and engage with City of Circle Pines on that project. Judicial Ditch 3 project, which is underway. We will have funds available for follow-up work from the ditch repair to ensure the stability of the system into the future. It includes a savings for the Hugo quote-unquote contract for work on the public drainage system to maintain funds for the maintenance of that system in the Hugo area. Ramsey County Ditch 4 again, and the conversion of the headwater pipe system and the transfer to Roseville is included under this fund. And there are monies available for repair reports and studies. Here, along with our district engineer, we're looking to establish the as constructed and subsequently improved condition on a number of public drainage systems, which include Ramsey County Ditches 1, 8, and Anoki County Ditch 25. Those are three of the remaining systems.
Is now exiting.
Remaining systems that need the establishment of the ASIC, or the record of the system itself. Includes funds for the ongoing maintenance system of the public drainage system, which is our obligation to those benefiting parties. And then, I'm sorry, I can't adjust my screen down for whatever reason. I am going to try and adjust that quickly and
Maybe if you just shut it down and go back into it, it'll
yeah.
get the page down.
Thank you for the suggestion, President Prenner. No, it's disappeared for me, which I'm not quite understanding, but it is in your packet, as I noted on page 74, and I think I'll continue from there. We're near the bottom of the list here. I was going to jump into Lake and Stream Management. That's Fund 90 for the district. That includes the continue the implementation of the curly leaf pondweed program, as well as the common carp management program. Monitoring and management of the district's surface waters. This is flow and water quality. It's an important foundation for the district in understanding the surface waters of the district. It helps us to support the district-wide model with its inputs, and it's really a foundation for the district's success in its obtaining grants from the state and other entities. And there we want to maintain its importance and so invest in that understanding of the system. And this is also the location where we recognize citizens and offer some funds when they have an interest in partnering with us on the water quality program, the grant program. District facilities, Fund 95. This is professional support for the inspection, the parts, the installation, vegetative burns, tilling of infiltration beds. All those systems that you've put into place and are responsible for do have annual maintenance needs. And so that work is included here. When we do find things that are no longer functional and actually need a repair, here I'm making a distinction between maintenance and an actual broken facility. we do have monies for repairs. So that would include like the Preview Lake outlet that we've recently discussed, obtaining any necessary easements and such. And then also includes our annual, what has become annual, savings for the future project and survey of the Long and Lock Lake sediment basins that the district has. Excuse me. In total, the proposed expenditures are $7,397,031 for year 2021. That is down from our expenditures in 2020. Total revenue for the 2021 is projected at $6,099,267, of which $5,409,299 is from the watershed-wide general property tax levy. This is a 0% increase in the property tax impact rate from 2020, but it does include a 4.4% rise in taxable market value on property within the watershed and results in a 4.4% increase in levy revenue. The remainder of the revenue to make up the budget is from water management districts, fees, grants, investment income, in the use of the district's fund balance. The property tax impact on a $200,000 home in Rice Creek Watershed District is estimated to be approximately $38 for the year. There is a table in your packet on page 76 showing the past property tax impact. You'll see that we are at $38, we'd still be below the high in 27 of $39.25. We can't, it is estimated, we can't definitively say what that amount would be as the counties have not yet released that information. I'm gonna interject here a little bit. The $200,000 single family property is the metrics that the district has used historically as a marker. And we are not defining that as typical or average, if you will, within the district. We're simply using that repeatedly through the years as a point of reference, so the board can see the potential effect on residential property and gauge any rise or fall there. And we've used it as long as I can remember, and its origin seems to be some alignment with the work of the county auditor and assessor. This is really, they define the median single family property value. Each county does this. They break down this data by city, et cetera, and constantly reevaluate it in different ways. But it is a measure of what they call central tendency. So it's the midpoint, if you will, equal properties above it for single family as well as above it. And so it's just a way of representing that data set. Again, that's just a short explanation as to why we say 200,000. We're not saying that that's representative, if you will, of any particular group within the district, but a way to capture the whole. So that is the general levy. And now we do have a number of watershed management districts that are in play for the coming year. They include Anoka County Ditch 31 repair project, water management district. Total collection of charges in 2021 to be $31,739. That's comprised of $29,962 in charges and $1,777 in right-of-way direct billing. This project was completed in 2016. Anoka County Ditch 46 repair project, watershed management district. has a proposed total collection of charges in 2021, a revenue of $45,756. That is comprised of $42,780 in charges and $2,976 in right-of-way direct billing. That project was also completed in the past, and so these are paying back the district, if you will. And then Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management Project and the Watershed Management District. Proposed budget is approximately $1,140,000 with a total collection of charges in 2021 revenue of $223,659. That's comprised of $187,998 in charges, $35,661 in right-of-way direct billing. As President Preiner stated, the Watershed Management District is scheduled to be ordered on September 9th, prior to the setting of the preliminary budget and levy. And of course, these charges that I've mentioned for Ramsey County Ditch 4 Water Management District are dependent on that approval or that order being set by the board. In completing the budget, the board worked to develop here the budget, recognizing its own obligations to the public drainage system and the facilities that it has under its control and obligation, to be attentive to the long-range fiscal management. That is their fund balance policy they developed with their accountant. To listen to the resource needs throughout the district itself and its various participants in that. Consider the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to, from there, prioritize accordingly. And so with that, President Preiner, I'll send it back to you. That is my presentation.
Thank you, Nick. So before we start the public comments, we want to emphasize the purpose of the hearing today. Number one is to receive comments from interested parties. It is not designed to get into discussion with board members. We are here today for comments only. So I'm going to ask that each person that wants to open their microphone, please do so and state your name and address for the record. So if anybody would like to begin, we will get started on the public portion of this hearing. Anybody like to comment today? Is there anybody like to comment today regarding our 2021 budget and levy? Everybody have their microphones on?
Madam President, this is Bradley. Can I
Go
ask
ahead.
a question?
Sure.
Nick, did you mention the Bald Eagle Area Association, WMD, or is that one now paid off?
President Preiner, Manager Bradley, that will be paid off this year. That is correct.
That'll be good news.
Any other comments from the public today? Any comments? If not, we're going to go ahead and close our public hearing. And we thank
Mike Bradley
Madam Chair?
Is now exiting.
So Bradley
ahead.
just entered.
Welcome, Mike. This is Manager Wynett. I see on the people that are in attendance, some names I'm not familiar with. This is a point of order here. Teresa, are they signed in some way so we have a record of who was attending these public hearings?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we're going to go ahead to our open mic. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments during the public comment part of the open mic? If there are, please state your name and address. Come forward with your comments. Hearing none, we're going to continue moving on. So the first thing is to consider the City of Hugo Comprehensive Stormwater Management Plan. Mr. Hughes.
President Reiner, Board of Managers, the Hugo CSMP agenda item starts on page 79 of your packet. The CSMP was partially introduced to the board at the August 10th workshop. That was to discuss the RCWD.
Short.
Is now exiting.
To discuss the RCWD review framework for any of the infiltration projects, reuse projects, or associated permits within the city. The CSMP document has been updated after discussions with the city and is present in the packet materials along with Houston Engineering's technical review memo and the proposed resolution for approval based on staff findings. Since the packet was distributed, a couple revisions to the resolution have been proposed to staff. An additional resolution with red line changes has been created, was provided to the Board of Managers and the City of Hugo, and was also made available on our website. The red line includes an expiration for the CSMP, which is a pretty typical item, as well as additional clarification language to paragraph 6 to capture the sequencing requirements of our RCWD Rule C6. And the final red line item relates to a comment that staff believes Manager Bradley would like to introduce regarding available credits from cost shared projects, which the district provided funding.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Comments from the board?
Whenever you would like me to make my presentation.
Go ahead, Manager Bradley.
Okay. If we start by going to page 104, which is the flow chart.
Okay.
So this complex flow chart, I think, breaks down to two basic points. The first one is if it's not possible for a project to on its own comply with our rules, it may use credits established by some other project within the same resource of concern. You find that, I believe, as the very right-hand last block, which after no says, after you said, no, I can't fix it, no, I can't fix it, no, I can't fix it, you say, okay, then volume credits may be purchased from the city as available within the same resource of concern. So that's one use of credits. The second use of the credits, and the one that causes me significantly more concern, is the first block up on the upper left-hand corner, which says, can volume control be provided on site, or has it been planned for regionally? It's hard for me to read this thing. And that one, so basically it says, I've said, yes, I could have complied with your rules, but instead of complying with your rules, I'm going to buy credits. And that causes me concern on several levels. Rice Creek, for example, gave, in my recollection, somewhere south of $200,000 for the infiltration, reuse, and water along Frenchman Road. And it's a good project. It's a great project. And I was very much in favor of funding that. It's one thing for us to say, all right, we're going to fund this really great project. It has regional value. And the reason we funded it is because it gave us regional value. It stopped taking water out of the groundwater, and it stopped putting stormwater in our ditches. But now we're saying, all right, we're going to dilute the value of that project because we're going to take those credits and we're going to allow people who are taking water out of the groundwater, who are putting excess water into the ditches, to benefit from this project. And I don't have a problem with Hugo spending its money to create that sort of project, to use Hugo's money to encourage economic development. But I believe it would be a misuse of public funds, Rice Creek's public funds, not Hugo's public funds, Rice Creek's public funds, to take our $200,000 and allow the city then to sell the credits we helped create with our $200,000 to a private party. The solution from my standpoint is to take Rice Creek's money off the calculation of the credits. Let the project, to the extent that it provides benefits above and beyond what was required for that individual project itself, compliance one, so that if there's excess capacity, if you will, for credits, create credits, but not with Rice Creek's funding. And that's why I've proposed a change to paragraph 5. But I've actually given a side benefit because I went and gave Hugo back something that it was willing not to ask for, which is on a cost share program. I'm willing to have, once we've gotten the benefit from the project that actually complies with our requirements, subtracted from the calculation of the credits, and I'm assuming that has been done. Then the benefits, credits created based on the proportion of money coming from Hugo may be used how it plans pursuant to this flow chart. They can sell it. So long and short of it, that's my concern and that's my proposed solution.
Okay.
Madam President, this is Manager Wagaman. May I speak on his proposal?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a little ambivalent, but I agree with Manager, Bradley, as far as, well, let me put it this way. I think I could make a case that the public is actually really gaining a lot of value out of these projects, that the money spent is really, really benefiting the district as a whole. However, I don't quibble with you. I'm not a lawyer, but I have a distinction. I guess maybe I have a difference without a distinction, because I agree with you for another reason. And the reason that it concerns me is that I feel that that's an advantage that city would have that a lot of other cities would not have the same advantage. I mean, the same ability to take advantage of it. I mean, the urbanized ones don't have the room. Other cities don't have the capacity, the money to do it, or the wherewithal, and so I agree with you, maybe for a different reason, but I do agree, and I think it's a good solution if everybody else thinks that. But at the same time, as long as I'm speaking, I would say I have waited 9 years for this kind of a project to come up, because I do think that these regional projects are of such high value. Not knocking the smaller projects, I just think that these give us a lot more bang for the buck. And when the cities are involved in managing them, we know that long term they're going to be there and function. And so I don't disagree with you. I'm not sure I agree for the exact same reason. I'm a little ambivalent. I don't know that I disagree, but we come to the same conclusion. So I would support your position.
President Preiner.
Go ahead.
If I could offer, and I apologize, I lost connection. You know, I told you my screen froze up, but I'm back now, and I missed some of Patrick's introduction. I will note, I think staff's preparation of this document and the work that we've done is founded, as we understood, operations to date. There was the white paper from back in 2016 and such that talked about water reuse and the importance to our resource goals. And from there was change in the cost share program sometime shortly after that, in which we allowed water reuse to be eligible for those funds. And then two other not directly related comments. Manager Bradley, to what you shared, when I look at paragraph 5 in the close here, I understood your comment to perhaps I've misunderstood, but when I read paragraph 5, the last statement, if a facility had been constructed, so looking back, it would seem to me those were passed under that past condition of the grant program, and therefore they're eligible to be used.
So Nick,
Yes.
the thing that Steve and you are missing is that we're talking about, let's take that French Road project. They aren't using that project under this plan to comply with our rule. They're going to sell credits to someone who's not complying with our rule. That's the problem. This is diluting. Would I have voted? I, Mike Bradley, have voted to grant them all that money if I had known they were going to sell and take that $200,000 to create credits and then sell them and pocket the money themselves for the city's purposes? It take a water bank where you buy credits and things. They wouldn't be paying back the bank. So that's where I can't get over, and I frankly think it would be an illegal use of Rice Creek's ad valorem taxes to allow someone else not to comply with our rules. They aren't complying with our rules. They're using money to buy themselves out of complying with the rules. I understand technically they're going to comply with it because we've got a resource thing, but that's going to be, if there are excess credits that we didn't fund with public funds from our entire ad valorem funds. That's my position, and I can't move from it.
Madam President, could our attorney speak to that? Because when I read the white paper, and what I understood was that our attorneys do say it's legal. And I would like to hear their reasoning for that. Because I agree with Manager Bradley on principle, but I thought we made it legal, and I think I could make a pretty good case that it's a really good expenditure actually in the long run. I wouldn't have recommended it. I think maybe we shouldn't have done it in the first place, but I do see why we did it, because we were really trying to get these kind of projects on the ground and we were getting nowhere. And I've been on the board 9 years. We've been trying to get some kind of regional projects that had this kind of impact. And we finally came up with a way to do it, maybe. And I do think we could make a case, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't claim to be. But I would be real curious to hear what our lawyer has to respond, why they decided this was legal.
Okay, Mr. Holtman? Check.
Yes, President Priner, managers. I think there are two questions here that I'm hearing. The first one is the question of, can the district provide cost share funds for a reuse facility whose capacity will then be used for regulatory compliance purposes? And my understanding from the 2016 white paper, and then following that, the board's incorporation of its recommendation into the cost share program guidance, is that there are public benefits to an applicant using reuse as opposed to the applicant using a different means of complying with the district rules. And that includes things like limiting the withdrawal of groundwater for irrigation purposes and some additional benefits. So in that sense, when the district is providing cost share funds to create an incentive for applicants to use reuse, it's because the board believes that will produce some general public benefits above and beyond compliance. And if that's the board's reasoning, then I do think that's a lawful use of those funds. The second question is the concern that Hugo has created that reuse facility and that capacity to apply the stormwater, and then an applicant with a site in a different location is simply going to pay Hugo money. Hugo will debit that capacity, and that applicant will be deemed to have met its obligations. And that is consistent with the rules as they're now written, which Manager Bradley referenced, that they're organized on a resource of concern basis. And if there is a regional facility that manages stormwater within the same resource of concern, and it is a facility that provides volume control, in other words, infiltration or irrigation reuse, then an applicant that is within that resource of concern can use that capacity in lieu of treating on site. And typically that is left to the negotiation between the applicant and the owner of that reuse facility, in this case, Hugo. And if that owner wants to make a deal and charge for that use, the district doesn't generally consider that it has a role or a stake in that. So these are policy judgments, and the board can make a policy judgment here, and that would be suitable going forward, as noted and as the resolution indicates, where a cost share agreement is already in place for one of the facilities, then that was made under the existing guidance that capacity could be used for compliance purposes. Whether the intent of that was narrower, Manager Bradley suggests that wasn't in contemplation of the city essentially becoming a broker of capacity. So that, that's a question for the board.
Madam President, if I could, I'm not claiming that a party can't buy its way out into compliance. I mean, we do that with wetlands all the time. And so I'm not saying that the basic underlying concept of creating credits and selling credits to somebody to come into compliance with our rule is illegal. What I'm saying is creating those credits with Rice Creek's funds and then allowing a private party to buy them from a third-party city is what causes me to draw up and say I can't support that, either from a policy standpoint or from my viewpoint as an ex-lawyer. I'm not the board's lawyer, but as an ex-lawyer, I would have told my clients you can't use public funds from Rice Creek for this purpose. Hugo can use its public funds for that purpose. So either way, I am proposing that we, first of all, proposing we expand what city asked for with regard to cost share funds. I would allow them to use their portion of the cost share program in excess of the credits necessary to, first of all, meet our rule for that project. And then if there are excess capacity on that project, they could use Hugo's funds to create credits from that project. So I'm giving them more than they asked for on that one. But with regard to reuse projects, I would simply say, create your credits after you've complied with whatever that project was being used for that project. And you can create credits with Hugo's money, and you can sell those to come into compliance with the rule. That's my proposal.
Didn't we discuss this with, I think it was the engineer at our last meeting when we talked about this topic? And they said that would be fine, or that would be consistent with what they would think? Or am I mistaken here?
President Preiner?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, at the workshop, we did have discussion about this before it came on board, and Hugo, representative, was present for that. And there was some discussion. That's where Manager Bradley initially brought up his concern. Manager Waller spoke in, I'll just say loosely, his support of the program, consistent with what was the policy to date. Beyond that, I think it's best to note City of Hugo representatives are present on the system and might best speak to their position. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from the managers?
Madam Chair? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Go
Jesse.
ahead, Marcy. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, well, as the newbie on the board, and since we've spent most of our time on Zoom, I am really struggling to keep track of how all this works. So first of all, I would say that we've got additional information from our workshop 2 weeks ago in front of us, including to me, and I've indicated before that I really appreciate maps. The map on page 94 shows the impervious of 2005. The map on 95 screen set shows that this is the impervious surface on 40. So, that's my first real impression of the amount of water, groundwater and surface water that we may be talking about in the next 20 years. So my concern at this point questions are, we've just talked a lot about our rules and we're talking about policy. So this discussion we're having may immediately impact Hugo, but what does it do with all the other cities in the watershed? And perhaps prior to making a decision specifically for Hugo, we as a board have to have a greater discussion about some of the things that Mike has raised in light of what we anticipate. And I have some specific things like, where did the calculation for the amount of dollars come from? Is that something that Hugo had, or as I'm reading this, it takes into account PCA's numbers, etc., which I don't want to discuss right now, but I feel personally that we may need another workshop on this one now that we have more information in front of us. So frankly, I'm not prepared to vote on this resolution today. Not that I'd be for it or against it, but I think as a board, we just need to have more discussion, or we might find ourselves again with the debit situation that for us, if I'm understanding this correctly. So again, this is nothing about you, Hugo. I would agree with my other board members that they seem to be really on the cutting edge of how you're going to do this, especially in light of that 2040 map. I have many more questions about the implications if we make a decision about this today. What are we going to be finding ourselves in as we move forward?
Okay, Manager Waller.
I wanted to ask if Rachel's on the call here, and I wanted to hear from the City of Hugo.
Okay. All right, Rachel, I think I saw you before. Are you on?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So just a couple points from, as you know, I attended the last board workshop and I knew that this was going to be something that we would need to work through. And I believe that it was directed for staff and the city to work together on these items. And so what we ended up doing is talking to staff and kind of going back in time a little bit on when we started talking about these water reuse projects and what were the major goals on both sides. And, you know, if you look at the first whereas on the resolution, it talks about, you know, the city of Hugo being a leader, and that was something that was described during the workshop, but that the water reuse projects have a lot of different benefits. And further in your watershed management plan, there's some policy and goal language that maybe says that I think says that the water reuse projects are probably one of the best solutions and protections of groundwater resources, and also surface water that are groundwater fed. And so back several years ago, you know, we initiated the discussion with the Watershed District in regards to water reuse and how do we do these regional programs. And with that discussion, we also had the discussion about the credits, because they kind of go hand in hand. And that was the deal back, you know, several years ago, and we talked about the benefits of these projects. So, and I think really, you know, some of the discussion was, okay, so we have these water reuse projects. They produce these credits that can be used to meet the rules for Rice Creek Watershed District. And, you know, in regards to the very first project that we had, it was the Onika Ridge Golf Course project. And so, you know, directly adjacent to that, after the project was built, was another development project. And we were talking about stormwater management for that development. And what they were end up going to do is use more water that wouldn't be able to be used for the watershed or for the golf course. And the golf course would need to augment with groundwater. So we worked on that development to make sure that there was additional water going to Onika Ridge Golf Course. And so that's kind of how this credit system came, that idea came. And so we want to be able to use the credits if it's an accounting issue that the Rice Creek Watershed District's having in regards to, you know, where does the money go or how much the credits are. I think that's probably a discussion that we can have, but we'd like to be able to at least use the credits for, you know, adjacent projects to meet the rules of the Watershed District.
So are you talking city projects or private developer projects?
It's probably both. We have a lot of, all of the recent residential development projects that we've had over the last 5 years have been using water reuse to meet, you know, stormwater management rules. And so that is something that they want to do as well. It's a good budgeting source for them. They know how much they can budget for their HOA, and they want to be a good steward of the natural resource. You know, it's something that the City Council and Planning Commission has really encouraged these developers to do.
Madam Chair, can I add just a couple comments to what Rachel said?
Sure. Who's speaking out there?
President. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hello, Brian.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, just.
Hi, Brian. What's your role, please?
I'm sorry, Brian Bear. I'm the city administrator for the city of Hugo.
Thank you.
And just want to address the board for a minute on this. There's a lot of history here with this idea of regional stormwater reuse, and the city and the Watershed District. We've been working together on this idea for a long, long time now, and it's coming to fruition. It's working. We've got a lot of good projects. Most of them are fully funded by private development. They're being used, and for the most part, it is a big success story. We need help from the Watershed District to do these retrofit projects. They're expensive to do, and they're very complicated in terms of maintenance and all of that. So we're working through those. When we put this program together, there are some things that were stopping us from moving forward. And in order to move forward, the Watershed District needed to make some modifications to their rules and policies, which they did. those rules and policies are written the way that they are now on purpose. It's intentional. They're done that way to accommodate these types of projects. We're really going to have some difficulty if the watershed moves in a different direction, because these projects depend on those rules and policies being applied the way that they're written. The system of credits is important. These projects aren't going to work without the credits. And Rachel alluded to that with the golf course being the first project. And the reason is simple. When we build a pump, we need water to get to that pump in order for the pump to work. So you need to have, this is an irrigation system, and a neighborhood is using it, or a golf course, or whatever the user is, they're depending on that now as their irrigation source. We don't want to supplement with groundwater for all of the obvious reasons. There's a lot of things that go into this. But if we're taking water out of the system before it gets to the pump, that's a problem. That is what we ran into at the golf course. So you build a project, there's a drainage area that goes to the pump that's used for irrigation. And then when projects develop upstream, the rule required infiltration. And we decided, along with the watershed, that's working against us. We want to use the regional system. We don't want all these little tiny systems all over the place, taking water away from the system that we just built. And so the system of credits was developed. It doesn't matter where the money comes from. The whole program doesn't work anymore if you don't have a system of credits. So using a part of the credits and not all of them, we're not expecting this conversation to happen right now. We need to go back and rethink the entire format. If we're starting to tinker with the credit system, it doesn't work anymore. So this is bigger than a money accounting question. If that's where you're at with it, we can figure that out. But this idea of credits and how the systems are managed, we're not prepared to continue to work through these if we have to go back to the beginning and figure out how to still comply with the old rules on infiltration, volume control, and that sort of thing. So the credits and being able to apply those to other projects, no matter where the money comes from, has to remain. And so I'd be real concerned about a vote being taken today that starts to move us away from that. If there's more time that's needed, we'll deal with that. But I'll tell you, the staff, our staff and your staff have been working really hard on this document that you've got. It's a good document, and we've got projects right now that we're ready to start applying these credits to. And it's important in the grand scheme of how these are managed. And so we hope you move forward. We like the staff's recommendation.
Okay,
We just
Brian,
lost him.
all together?
We lost him.
Okay, well, what I want to say is, Brian, the issue I think we have is that we have new board members that weren't involved originally, and staff that wasn't involved originally, and Marcy's just asked really for more time. So I don't know how the board feels about holding this over, have one more workshop and then call it. So
Madam President, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I really wanted to talk to Brian, so I was hoping we hadn't lost him.
Well, maybe he'll get back here. Yeah.
I'll talk to Rachel. So let's his example. First of all, Centerville did exactly what he's talking about. We funded Centerville, and then they had neighborhoods around that Centerville thing that brought their water in, and we used that project to deal with Centerville's projects. To the extent that we're talking about upstream water for Hugo, maybe we understand it better, that upstream water comes, as long as the water is actually going to that project, we fund it. But there's nothing in this process that we've developed that I'm aware of that limits it to upstream water or limits it. Here it comes. Brian, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I have no idea.
Okay. I was trying to respond to you, and I really appreciate your comments. I've told you many times how impressed I am with what you're doing and how supportive I am of that. And your upstream comments were intriguing to me because we've done that, if you will, in Centerville. And I think we've done that on your Frenchman Road. Adding new developments that use an existing facility is different, though, than creating a facility upstream and letting something that's 5 miles downstream use your credits. Because now we are putting the water back in because they aren't infiltrating it. They aren't having a BMP. They're letting the water go down the stream. So maybe all we need to do, well, maybe not all, but maybe what we need to do is take a little effort to better define how this should work to be in the public interest. So I would support another workshop, another effort to better define when would using credits funded by us. I don't care how you fund it if you're using Hugo's money, but if Rice Creek's going to fund it, it ought to be because we are taking less water out of the ground and or because we're putting less water in the ditches.
Brian, would there be any option for you
That's
to
what
move?
we're doing.
Would there be any option for you to move forward using your credits at this time? And then we'll be talking about how the watersheds would play in. Could you start that way?
So what I was wanting to tell you is that what we've got here in the document is something that complies with your policy and your rule, and we'd like you to move forward with that. In order for us to use these credits the way we understand it, we need you to adopt this comprehensive stormwater management plan. We think it's exactly in compliance with all of your policy. The idea of starting to recreate this, we had to create resource areas of concern. All of these boundaries and things like that deal with credits, it wound up being a lot more complex than what we wanted it to be. We're working with it the best that we can, and we're really not wanting to go back and rethink how all this works by starting over again. And this idea of management of credits is a delicate question. And so we think we've been through these discussions with the watershed district already. It's taken a long, long time for us to get there. And we'd just like to move forward with what we've got. If there's a question about just, who pays for what credit, that I think is an accounting detail that we can work through, but the credits have got to be there.
Madam Chair, this is Manager Wynett. I have no problem with credits, so I want to clear that up. From where I'm sitting right now, I just need to understand like the watershed picture on this. And I would agree with whoever spoke about the consideration of both groundwater and surface water and the challenges that you will face. So I guess my question, are you going to public hearing with this? What is the time constraint on this? Could we do? Go ahead. Get another 2 weeks to just understand it, Brian, not so much to reconfigure it, but I guess personally for me.
Yeah, so it looks like we've got some work to do to help the board connect the dots again on this. I just believe, I like to believe that we're all moving forward in the same direction. I think our principles are the same in how we manage water. These are good projects. And we need to make sure that we don't tinker with a system that we think is prepared to work. It's designed. We've worked through a lot on this. And these aren't easy projects to continue to do. And it's working for us right now, and we want to keep doing them. That's the bottom line. So if we need to spend some time, our staff and your staff, to help get everyone back on this bus again, that's where we need to go with it.
So Brian, you said you'd be willing to talk about accounting issues. What did you mean by that?
I don't know. So there's a concern about watershed district money for some reason being applied to credits. And we've got a mechanism for a lot of reasons that deal with how stormwater gets managed and handled in a regional facility. And so the monies that we collect as a city for those types of applications get put back into good projects like this. I mean, we've got a stormwater management fund, and that's the whole idea. If the watershed wanted to hang on to some of this money we just hope that it would come back to another project like this. We don't know what you're going to use it for either. But that's the idea, is that you're helping with there's two incentives here. One is a financial incentive and the other is a credit incentive. And they both have to be there, or we start to lose the feasibility of the projects.
Madam President, may I ask Mike a question? Mike Bear, or Brian Bear, I apologize for that. First of all, I'd like to say I commend you guys on your leadership in this, and I do think it's also an awesome project. I've waited the whole 9 years I've been on the board to have something like this come up where we could get regional projects. But I do have one question. I don't have the same concern, I don't think, that Mike has as far as the money involved, our money being involved. I think we can make a great case that it's an awful good expenditure of the money on the behalf of the whole watershed. But what do you say about, I still have a little bit of an issue, and I don't know if it is a real concern, but other cities aren't going to have that same ability to do that. And are we going to hear from every other city that how come Hugo can use part of the money that they paid in to meet their obligations? Why can they use that money and make money on it where we don't have that same option because we're urbanized and don't have the expertise? I mean, what do you respond to that?
So keep in mind that I think this is an easy question to answer. Okay, there's
Good.
So many benefits to this. So let's just take, for example, a project like the ones in Water's Edge or the ones that we're talking about on Frenchman Road. You end up with a development, and it already meets all of the rules. It's been built, has all the BMPs, water quality, volume control, flood control, all of that's there. And then you retrofit a stormwater reuse project into that already built development. That's a retrofit. Okay, the watershed district expends funds and on a project like that will help with all of these things, including flood control, which is a district-wide ad valorem idea. The flood control, the flooding concerns are downstream from us elsewhere in the district. And then when Rachel started talking to you, and we'd just direct your attention to the first whereas in that resolution, not the one that talks about Hugo being a leader, but the important part is the stuff that comes after that, because it's in your watershed plan. You have specifically identified some bigger purposes in your watershed plan. And that has to go with groundwater management in addition to surface water management. You've recognized the importance of not drawing down the aquifers. You've recognized the importance of not impacting groundwater-based natural resources. These are all district-wide initiatives. All of the things that are in that first statement are critically important for management of a watershed. That's your purpose. And you meet all of them. This is the great thing about projects like these, is that they connect all these dots together. And so the case that you can make for benefit district-wide is so strong on a project like this that, you know, you couldn't, I don't think you could spend enough. I mean, the idea of giving away credit is a practical management question that needs to work in terms of the function of it. But the financial incentive and those kinds of things, it's an easy argument, easy case to make. Not all cities have the water available to make a project like this go. But for the cities that do, if it's a city other than Hugo, by all means, you should be giving it to those cities too.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
In response to Manager Wagaman's question, also, just to be clear, for the last 3 years, the district has had a policy from its cost share program that any reuse program that would be brought forward could be eligible for utilizing the volume created for permit regulation compliance purposes. And I think maybe Kyle could even speak to that a little bit further related to the stormwater cost share program.
Absolutely, Madam President. Yeah, I was kind of waiting for a break in the conversation that I didn't want to interject too quickly, but you know, the history of this and really what Brian was saying is absolutely, you know, accurate. We were looking at in the case of Hugo, a city that was attempting to develop all of these projects. We had been working with them starting back in Onika Ridge in maybe 2014, and the challenge that Rice Creek staff was observing and working with Hugo and others, you know, we have participated on these types of projects across the district. The challenge is that you know, we have a lot of areas in the watershed that are not in their native the way they are, their native soils. They're not suitable for infiltration. We either have heavy soils or high groundwater table. You know, Hugo happens to be a place that we see a lot of that, a lot of high groundwater table. And so we have developments coming in with our regulations that, you know, right off the bat, they're going to, you know, sequence out of volume control of any kind due to the site conditions. So we're not going to get infiltration basins there, et cetera. And water reuse irrigation is one way that we can get volume control in areas of the district that are not otherwise suitable for it. The problem is they're a lot more expensive than your traditional volume control practices like infiltration basins and things of that nature. And so we were trying to find, you know, a way for the watershed district to incentivize the construction and implementation of more of those volume control practices, because runoff volume is such a problem through so many areas of the watershed. You know, Hugo as a geographical area, the city of Hugo is kind of like a, case study A in that, given the makeup of its soils and the fact that it's actively developing. And we've got a city leadership there that is pushing to implement so many of these projects to solve all these problems. And so in looking at that, you know, it came down to that discussion, which was already, Brian's already touched on, but what are the benefits of these projects? It's not just volume control. It's volume. You do get volume control. The ponds that are created to house the water that's being pumped, you get some rate control there as well. And then primarily, again, the benefits to groundwater. And, and in incentivizing these projects, and then, through development of our recent watershed management plan update, we have a lot of pressure from various, constituencies for the watershed district to take a more active role in groundwater. And I think that as a board, you have defined your role pretty concisely, that, these are the things we're going to do. And we're doing what we're required to do. And then how else can we incentivize this? And water reuse has always been the one type of capital improvement that we've supported that really, really helps improve, groundwater protection. And so in defining and changing the cost share policy back in 2016, that was one of the main things, which coming out of Houston's white paper, but one of the main things that drove the approval of that cost share policy that allowed reuse projects to be eligible for consideration for regulatory purposes as well, was the fact that, okay, we may be contributing $50,000 or $100,000 to one of these projects, but it's not just for the stormwater management components of the project. It's stormwater management, it's groundwater protection, and everything that goes along with that. So, the money that we may invest in one of these projects, if we wanted to try and start, you could make the case, oh, well, we should divvy up, we have $100,000, maybe it's 50,000 for stormwater, 50,000 for groundwater. That's an incredibly difficult thing to do, and for what benefit? And so, the policy was changed, in my recollection and experience was truly to just incentivize the development of these types of projects, get them on the landscape and working. And, we were focusing on the multitude of benefits provided by these projects, not solely just on, whether or not it was going to be used for, Rule C compliance or not. And the fact that if we were going to not allow that incentivization, if I can get my words right, of these types of projects, we're going to see fewer of them. And in some of these areas that are developing now, we're going to see NERP ponds. We're going to see non-volume control practices installed, and we won't get the volume control. So it wasn't, I think, an active decision by the district to invest in these types of projects so that we do get volume control in places that we otherwise would not.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
And Madam President,
Madam Chair,
go ahead.
Manager, Kyle, I would like to thank you for those comments. That cleared up a lot of the questions and concerns I had, knowing about thinking of the board and how you found yourself, how this board found itself in supporting this project.
Okay, Manager Waller.
Well, Madam President, thank you. I agree with you. There's been some changes on the board itself and in the staff, and maybe some of the background and history of it, experience of us being there. So I appreciate very much Brian and Rachel coming today, and Chris and Kyle and Chuck all contributing here, because they were all active members in the development of this. And I want you to remember that this has been a learning project that we've modified over the years. We began with the golf course. There wasn't enough water for it, and then they built another project upstream called Fox Meadows. Instead of having inundation, infiltration ponds, we put that water down into the golf course, and they stopped drawing water out of the groundwater in order to meet the gallons that had to be to make the credits work. And we've modified those things. And this 2016 paper or agreement has worked really, really well. And I am a very strong supporter of the current resolution that was in the packet. I think it was well written, and I don't have any really large modifications to it. There's one I would take out maybe over on page 2, the second sentence from the top. I'd move the period over behind the word necessary, and I'd leave the city with the ability. They currently assess the property owners for these projects, but I'd eliminate that phrase in there. Other than that, I don't have any corrections to this document at all, and it's worked really, really well. It's going to work, continue to work in the future for all of us. And as I said, it's a document that has evolved over our learning experiences over the time. And in order for the first paragraph here to work, if you take, it's like a chain, if you take one of those pieces out of there, it doesn't work. And so I'm a strong advocate of this. I don't see that the credit issue is a big deal, because it's just another step to avoid variances to me. And so I support the current resolution very strongly.
And Madam President?
Go ahead.
This is Manager Wagman. I would like to say one other thing, and it's just kind of an aside, but I think it's an important one. When we toured Onika Ridge Golf Course after that project was done, the turnout was massive, and it was all high-level people. I mean, I remember we had the Speaker of the House there, I think, and we had major people looking at it, in high visibility people from around the state, all over the place. And the only other project that I remember having remotely that kind of turnout is when we went and toured the project in Hugo where they reused the water on their baseball fields, I think it was. And so these projects are of high visibility and really, really being looked at as being very important. And I think we should be a leader with Hugo in trying to make this work. I mean, I just can't, somehow, to me, I think it would be an absolute shame if somehow this got lost in the details, because I think Brian Bear is right. We did do this in 2016, completely aware of what we were doing, and set it up that way on purpose to try to get exactly what we've ended up getting. And now we're trying to go back and remove what we did to try to get them. Seems a little bit regressive, actually. And so I do support it also.
Okay, how about the addition in red that was on our second packet about the expiration time? Does anybody have a problem with that, or is there? That was a new paragraph.
President Preiner?
Mm-hmm.
Nick Tomczak, Rice Creek Administrator. I'll just share, yes, the item you identified, 9, the addition of an expiration, as well as the addition in item 6 of the red line document, are both staff generated items, if you will. It just provides a termination date for the district and Hugo to reevaluate a total of 20 years out. And then item 6 is something that currently exists in the rule, and it has to do with ensuring that the use of credits provides equivalent total phosphorus removal from the system. That exists in our current rule, and it has to do with the location of the project impacting the resource, if you will, requiring the permit, and then whether the credits are located upstream or downstream to it, and then you adjust the number of credits to meet with that obligation. So I just want staff to take ownership of those 2 items.
Madam President?
Go
If
ahead.
I could put a cap on my comments, I'd like to take Brian Bear up on this proposal that we address where the proceeds go and make sure that the proceeds from selling these credits flow back into water quality, water quantity projects that we would otherwise approve of. If you're gonna take our $200,000 off Hugo French Road and you're gonna monetize that and you're gonna recover money for it, it ought to go back for public good that Rice Creek itself would benefit from. What do you think about that, Brian?
Madam President, if I could just, thinking about that, there would be an ability for us, I think, to give the credits away for free. And, if that's the concern, we could do that. And that would be better than not having the credits available.
So
The idea of selling them, it would seem to be that there's a common benefit there to be able to have funds that come back that can be used for similar projects. We don't allocate our budgets in that sort of a detailed way, this money versus that money, but we can absolutely submit to you that we are spending large sums of money on these types of water quality projects, and we're not going to have any problem whatsoever in exceeding the credit values that we're talking about that would be generated from proceeds from the watershed district. And so I think that's a given before we start, that we can allocate those monies back. And I don't want to have to get into a discussion about tracking and auditing and things like that. I mean, I think this is just an easy ongoing, we can just submit to you that that's already happening, will continue to happen, and will be far above and beyond what the contribution would be from these credits.
So if we were to add a sentence somewhere in this resolution that says, the city commits to use the proceeds from selling credits for future water volume quality projects, we could be done with that. Wouldn't have to be tracked, wouldn't have to be recorded, but you would be making a commitment.
Right, and I just would suggest, keep in mind, we could charge 0.
Well, you know, if you charge 0, I wouldn't have a problem. It's the monetizing it. And I don't even have so much trouble if you go to flow chart 104 on 104. I don't have so much trouble monetizing it when there's no BMP available. It's when you monetize it when they could have. Because we've degraded the value of your project when they don't comply with our.
So I think we've hit on what the hang up is the city somehow getting selling the credits, which appears to be that the city is benefiting or profiting in some way. And I would just suggest to you that that's better than giving them away for free, because there's the ability to have some benefit back.
Right, and so I'm just trying to,
Madam President,
to save and make that occurrence in the public benefit of Rice Creek, not the public benefit of Hugo.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
So we're the hang up seems to be that the city hasn't explicitly said how they're going to use the money or non-money credits. And they have said today, I've listened to Brian say it goes back into stormwater in the city and they use it on a lot of projects there. I think I trust the city enough to do that. I don't think they're going to violate these rules. They're adopting the rules of the watershed district by city ordinance, and I trust that they're going to be good stewards and go on. There's only 2 ways water leaves Hugo, stormwater leaves Hugo. It's either on Clearwater Creek or for the Rice Creek portion, that's nearly 2/3, 3/4 of the city, or on Hardwood Creek. And so as I read this document, that when you do these projects for regional benefit on Clearwater Creek, that's for Clearwater Creek. Their credits aren't to be used on the other trunk system, Hardwood Creek. That would be a separate situation. So I think we're just getting hung up on over verification. And the city of Hugo, as Steve said earlier, has really been a leadership in this, and we've gotten a lot of high-profile people come down. At the legislature the last couple of years, I've listened to the golf course lobbyists go on and on about how wonderful this program was out at Onika Ridge. And I've been amazed at the amount of people who have come in and talked about that reuse. We've won awards, Madam President, and received a lot of pats on the back because of this program that's
How do you
developed.
want to proceed then? Does somebody want to make a motion on the resolution, or do we want it to come back with a few different? Everybody's got to decide what they want. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, this is Manager Winan again. My concern in this is that we know what the conditions will be, what we're deciding now to grant Hugo, and that those conditions are similar when we are approached by Forest Lake or Columbus or Lionel to do the same thing. So yes, we might trust Hugo, but somewhere we might want to say that if you're going to use JC funds for credit, and the reality is that yes, we got credit, then A, B, and C. And if we could clearly line those up today, I would be willing to vote on the resolution. Or the other thing is, staff, can you identify what those 3 items are that Mike has raised and have these so we can have, so that future board members can know how these decisions were made and what the criteria was in making the decision. So again, this is not, I'm thinking more like, my thinking here is, yes, this is a great project. Hugo, I appreciate your leadership, but as we overlay these conditions on other communities, we want to be consistent and know how we got to those.
Madam President, I would point out that Kyle earlier answered that question about other communities. And that this has become the template for how we do this in other communities and have done it. So I think that that's already established of how it's going to be done in other communities.
Madam President, may I propose a whereas for Hugo's consideration?
Okay.
And it's off the top of my head. Whereas the city intends, you know, this word intends, whereas the city intends to use the proceeds from any sale of credits for the benefit of future water quality and/or water quantity projects. Semicolon, move on.
Is that not now isn't that kind of our rule now?
No, I'm talking about the credits. The monetization of the credits.
Yes, right, that doesn't.
The city intends to use any proceeds from the monetization of those credits for the benefit of future water quantity quality projects.
Madam President.
Intent.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
I think it says that already. Water quality volume credits the city generates will be applied within the same resource of concern. Period.
That's applying the credits. I want to know what's going to happen with the money that they receive.
Well, the credits or the money, it's the same thing. You give the credits away for nothing, or if you get a dollar value for it. It means that the money or the credits, because you don't get any money unless you have a credit and you sell it, that is going to be used in the same resource of concern. I don't see the differentiation there. And that's why I say it already says this.
Okay, somebody's got to make a motion on a resolution.
Madam President, I'll make a motion. I move.
Before you do that,
sure.
Manager Waller, did we determine did we finish talking about having a time limit on it before you do that? I don't know if we came to a conclusion. I missed it if we did.
It was on page 3 of the new.
It's on that, yeah, it's on page.
But I mean, did we agree that we were going to do that?
Yeah.
Madam President, could I make a motion first, and if it goes down, it goes down? Which would be, I would move the resolution proposed by our staff with the amendments they proposed, we've discussed today concerning term limits, for example, along with an additional whereas clause that states, whereas the city of Hugo intends to use any proceeds from the sale of credits for the benefit of future water quantity and/or water quality programs. Semicolon.
We have a second?
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
President Preiner?
Go ahead.
Just point of clarification on the motion. So that would be inclusive of the red line document, new item 9, which deals with the term limit, and the adjustment to item 6 on clarity for compliance with rule C6.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a
Madam
motion.
President. Also, one other thing on that. Well, never mind. I guess we've gone over it enough that I don't need to repeat it. Let's just move forward.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
This is Chuck and Manager Bradley. Just a question. Is the word future essential? Mr. Bear may want to speak to it, but it strikes me that the money that comes in from credits may be used to repay the fund that was used to finance the construction in the first place.
I accept your friendly amendment.
Okay, we have
Madam President, there is one question I mean, doesn't this put a whole bunch of pressure on Hugo to do a bunch of accounting? And I'm not sure how they'd actually do. I mean, if they just make a friendly amendment that they're just going to do it, I'm not sure what that accomplishes, because they're not held
behind when he has to explain why he allowed Rice Creek water funds to be used to subsidize development in Hugo. That's what it does. It helps me be comfortable that I'm not doing something illegal. No, they don't have to do any accounting, because that's why I said they intend.
If they intend, so there's no accounting. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Everybody understand the resolution proposed? Okay, Manager Waller.
No.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Oh, boy. Is it proper to ask a question of Mike Baird during this vote, or is it too late?
I agree.
Well, we're a little late, but let's go ahead. Okay.
Well, I'm just curious what he thinks of this vote and what it's going to do. I mean, I'd like to vote no, but I don't want to vote no if it's going to torpedo the program for them, because I just don't see quite the why this is so important. But maybe I'm missing something. But I would like to hear from Brian. I wish Brian would change his name to Mike so I could keep it straight. But Brian Bear, I'm curious, is this really putting a bind on them or not?
Madam President, Manager Wagaman, thank you. Yeah, you know, I think our position would be that it's completely unnecessary. Look, the comment that your attorney just provided is a good one. We're participants in the project to begin with. Always are, always will be. The funds that we pay in and recollect, it's all the same. And we just think it's unnecessary. If there's a requirement of this type, we're going to comply with it. I think, it, like I said before, it goes without saying. But I just don't want to be in a position of being challenged by the Watershed District and saying, tell me exactly what these dollars were spent on, and then have some determination made whether that was an appropriate project or that kind of thing. So it just seems to set the stage for uncomfortable questions later that we think are probably unnecessary. So we'd prefer it without, but it's not going to be difficult to comply with.
Thank you. I would vote no.
Okay, so we have a Waller no, Wynant yes, Bradley yes, Wagaman no, and Priner no. I think we'll go with the original. So the motion fails. So now we need to have a motion on the regular resolution that was included. If I'm corrected in this, Chuck, help me if I'm wrong.
Well, Madam President, so at this point, there's no motion on the floor. So the original resolution could be moved, or a resolution with any additional changes.
Okay.
Madam President?
Go ahead.
I'll move the resolution 2021. The Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers approving the City of Hugo Comprehensive Stormwater Management Plan. And therefore be resolved that pursuant to District Rules C5 (F) the board approves the city's of Hugo's CSMP, and be it further resolved that on behalf of the board, the district administrator in writing may approve any final CSMP revisions that are consistent with the terms of this resolution. And I would ask that we consider eliminating the phrase in item number 3 on the second sentence from the top, moving the period over behind the word necessary and eliminating the phrase "and to assess the property owners for its cost."
Okay, do we have a second? Well, we're not getting a second, so I say that we hold this over to our workshop and follow discussion one more time and come back with a resolution that we can move on. Do I need a motion to table, or what would I need, Jeff?
Madam President, board members, you don't need any formal motion. You can simply, as chair, direct that as a matter for the next workshop agenda.
Okay, I will direct it for the next workshop, but the final vote will be on the following regular board meeting.
President Preiner,
Yes.
for clarity in the record, with the number of items at the next workshop, it'll be that workshop, or maybe we have a secondary one as well with some items on it, but you and I can discuss that.
Well, I don't want to hold it up if Hugo has projects ready to go.
Agreed. Between now and the next workshop, or as we're able. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Madam Chair, this is Murphy. But was it the addition of Manager Waller's comments about the period? I didn't follow where he was talking about that.
Madam President, where I'm talking about that, Marcy, is on page, just a minute, I closed my booklet.
It's 112 of the packet.
Thank you.
That's the problem.
Page 112 of the packet, second sentence from the top. There's a comma after necessary, change that to a period and eliminate the phrase.
Okay, we're going to move on from this discussion. That's going to go to a workshop. We have to continue our meeting. So we're going to go to Lametti and Sons partial.
Madam President, would you be certain that I asked Nick and the staff to be sure that they let Rachel and Brian know about the workshop and any kind of communications or talk?
Well, yeah, they have that communication with them. Okay, let's go to it.
Thank you for coming. They've been very helpful. And
very much.
Very much.
Okay.
Yes, President Preiner, I heard you introduce the next agenda item for the partial contractor payment. This is on Anoka, Washington Judicial Ditch 3, the main trunk and branch 3 repair. You did award the project to Lametti and Sons back in February. The contractor has completed multiple facets of the project and has submitted an invoice for services totaling $236,977. Houston Engineer is recommending payment totaling $225,128.15. The difference between the request and the recommended total is the contractual 5% retainage difference that we're putting forth here. Staff would recommend approval of the item. There is a proposed motion on page 116.
Madam President, I would move to approve partial payment number 1 to Lametti and Sons, Inc. for Anoka, Washington Judicial Ditch 3, main trunk and branch 3 repair in the amount of $225,128.15.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wageman,
Yes.
Manager Priner, yes. Okay, the next thing is consider solicitation of professional services agreement. Yeah?
Yes, President Pryor, Board of Managers, Minnesota Statute 103B identifies many of the district's organizational obligations. One of those is which at least every 2 years you must solicit interest for proposals for your legal, professional, and technical consultants that provide services to the district. You've last completed this in 2018, and the practice is to publish the notice in the district newspaper, post it on our website, and provide that out to the current engineering pool and any entity, quite frankly, expressing interest in providing you those services. We ask that they provide their expertise in watershed district matters, their hourly billing rates for the future 2021-2022 timeframe, and the names and qualifications of their personnel that would participate. We give them about a month to respond. I'll note here when those, provided the board authorizes us to move forward with that, we would review the professional services proposals likely at the October 12th workshop. As a tangent here to the discussion, in the past, you've created an quote unquote engineering pool out of those firms that were not selected. And we're not intending as staff to do that this time, but let me add some clarity. Engineering pool is a rather limiting factor. Staff believes that there's other firms that deal with some of the things that Matt Koshin deals with as your lake and stream specialist, stream morphology, I think is the term I'm looking for. I'm probably butchering that. And so they're not definitively engineers, and we believe we can construct a pool of engineers and other consultants with this expertise that could serve you. It's not part of the statutory requirement. We think we can be quite clear in letting it all go out and creating a pool outside of this notice. Professional notice. With that, staff would ask for your authorization.
Need a motion to authorize the administrator to publish? Go ahead. Page 125.
Sure. I move that to authorize to publish the district official newspaper, post on district website, and provide to the current open.
Okay, second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Winant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. So you can go ahead and get that started, Nick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, is Beth out there? Page 127. Here you are. Okay.
All right. So in your packets, or good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting me be here. In your packets, you have for your consideration 3 letters to the Minnesota Association of Watershed Districts. We have separated them out into 3 separate letters, as well as 3 separate motions for you to consider. And with each one, it is to reinforce or restate your support of specific mod resolutions that have been identified in the past as priority of this watershed district. These were created at your direction after our last workshop. Do you have any questions for me regarding these letters?
Madam President, Well, I have one question. It's not directly related, but we had written two legislations on the ditch legislation. We were working with the DNR and we had written legislation we were going to submit to the legislature, and then they talked us out of it because they were going to deal with our problems, and then they came back and didn't. Did we ever resubmit those or submit them? I'm not sure we ever did submit them.
No, they're still on hold, and this resolution would allow, this resolution would support MOD using their lobbying resources to continue to monitor that situation, and that we would support if the MOD membership felt like, and members, right, individual members, felt like enough movement had not been made, that MOD would lobby to have new legislation written that are similar to House File 2687 and Senate File 2419. Those are that piece of legislation. They've sunsetted. And so that's why when we write these, we support or oppose legislation modeled after, because it could shift, but then it means that MOD can still, so if the legislation dies, similar legislation comes up, MOD is still able to act. So to answer your questions directly, those pieces of legislation were pulled. But this existing resolution that you're demonstrating continued support for if you submit this letter, and the resolution isn't going to go anywhere whether you send this letter or not, but it keeps kind of momentum and pressure on MOD to know that we want resources towards this. And so that would be then, as the legislative session opens up, that may be a priority of MOD to, okay, we haven't gotten anywhere with the DNR, we are going to get someone to reintroduce this legislation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. President Preiner, Nick Tomczyk, Administrator, Manager Wagaman, I would echo what Beth has shared. I think one way to phrase it for DNR, I would say we've seen change, but maybe not to the extent that we would have liked. And so we are very cautiously optimistic. We know that other watersheds are having similar problems, notably different for their own circumstance, but so we support them and look for their support if DNR, for lack of a better word, remains unattentive to our 103E obligations.
Madam President?
Yes.
So the way I listened to that, I didn't hear anything that sounded like there was going to be a positive move forward. I heard that we're going to sit and wait explanations. And I don't know what Manager Wagaman's position is, but I'm not one. We've been waiting a long time, and my patience is up. So I'd like to see something new, something more aggressive.
If I can kind of address that issue, in my understanding, those are not mutually exclusive situations. This is an existing resolution of MOD. We're reinforcing that. It would not in any way limit Rice Creek's ability to work with our legislators to have something reintroduced, nor would it limit Rice Creek's ability to work through MOD to have something done. But this is the resolution that says we support this legislation, and it's an existing resolution. So if you wanted to move the needle further, then this is the resolution. This resolution is a vehicle to do that, and you can have more pointed discussions. But this resolution would allow MAUD to lobby on its behalf.
Yeah, I think moving forward in a different direction, John and Steve, that's our option, and that certainly we can talk about with our attorney, John Cole. So.
And that's what I was thinking. They're two separate issues. We can discuss the other at a workshop. And because I do kind of agree with Manager Waller that, but I'd like to discuss it more first at a workshop. But it's a separate issue basically. So I have no problem supporting this.
We have 3 proposed motions on page 128. Would somebody like to work on those?
Madam Chair, this is Manager Wynett. I would move to submit the submittal of the letter signed by the board president supporting 2019 resolution 2019-6, proposed legislation that forces spending on political boundaries to MAUD staff with non-substantive changes.
I would second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Manager Waller.
Madam President, I'm going to vote no on this, even though this is what was basically proposed a half an hour ago to do to the city of Hugo. Their money was on the political boundaries of the credit.
Manager Wynant. Manager Wynant? Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Okay, the second motion.
Madam President, I move to approve submittal of the letter to be signed by Board President Planner supporting the 2018 resolution 2018-08, reinforce existing rights to maintain, repair 103E drainage systems to MAUD staff with non-substantive changes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Manager Waller. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for a vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. And the third one?
Madam President, I move to
This is Manager.
Go ahead, Marcy.
Okay. To approve submittal of the letter to be signed by Board President Priner supporting the 2017 resolution 2017-04, limited liability for certified commercial salt applicators to the MAUD staff with non-substantive changes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner? Yes, motion passes.
President Priner?
Yes.
As the board has any, as you move forward, and if you have any legislative issues, if you want me to especially with the 103E drainage systems after you've talked to John Kolb, please let me know if I can be of any assistance in bringing Emily in, if you'd like to have a conversation with her about what MAUD strategy might be, or if you would like me to start doing some research to see which of our legislators might help us with authoring any legislation. Let me know, and I'm happy to assist with that.
Okay, we'll have that conversation, and then I'm sure we'll need your assistance. Thanks, Beth.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Check register.
Madam President, I move to approve the check register dated August 26, 2020 in the amount of $346,014.21 prepared by Redpath and Company.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wageman,
Yes.
and Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. Items for discussion. We have Ashley on the line.
Good morning, Madam President, Board of Managers. Hope everyone is doing well. I'll share my screen here for a presentation. Oh, let's. Do we see a slightly glitchy screen?
Not bad.
Okay. And a fuzzy tail. Come on, there we go. All right, so today I will be talking on the 2020 implementation of the public drainage system priorities. So here's a brief outline of what I'll be touching on. We'll be looking at the factors that are affecting the 2020 implementation of the public drainage system program, and then addressing what has been happening as part of the 2020 implementation after all these factors have been taken into consideration. We'll look at some challenges we're facing.
Excuse me, Ashley. Am I the only one that is not seeing your screen?
I can see it. Everybody?
I can see it.
Okay, I'll keep pushing buttons. Thank you.
And you'll disappear.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Yeah, I hope that comes back. If it doesn't, I can try popping out and popping back in on the screen sharing. So we'll look at some challenges we're facing, and then looking forward, what are we doing to ensure that the work gets done? So what are these factors affecting, the 2020 and even, looking further ahead, 2021 implementation, and how did we get here? I'm sure you're all familiar with the Watershed Management Plan. It's the little book that's on all of your bedside tables. So, first and foremost, we are guided by the Watershed Management Plan and the priorities that it sets forth. This is what set the initial 2020 work plan before we had all of the other factors come into play. Everyone is aware COVID-19 has impacted Minnesota as well as the rest of the world. This past March, with guidance from the CDC and the state, most staff began working from home full time. That included myself. The list of COVID's impacts is pretty long, and it's impacted pretty much everything. But essentially for staff, the main impacts are really just unexpected changes to working conditions. All of a sudden, we're packing up computers and shipping off home. So now we're working full time from home, and with limited staff out in the field. Primarily my job is a fair balance of field work and office work, with primarily more field work in the summertime. And that was kind of shut down. So that included the contractor pool. That's something that I normally oversee and manage. And that was on hold because we didn't really know what the future held, and it just led to a lot of uncertainty. Where are we going to be working? How are we going to be working? Are we returning back to the office? The timelines, kept shifting as we learned more about COVID-19, and then the state continued to issue additional executive orders. And then in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic, this spring also brought about an unexpected staffing change. And so because this is a public meeting, I do need to be very mindful of privacy rules. So I will avoid too many specifics and only touch on the topic broadly. But this staffing change did require that I quickly transition from the work I was doing from my home office to basically full-time field work. And so it was a little bit of a change. I quickly took on multiple projects. These projects were all at different phases. Some of them were still in planning, and some of them were final coordination. Some of them had already started, so they just needed to be wrapped up. Fortunately, the strategies we have been using to manage public drainage systems it meant that I was already appraised of most of the ongoing projects. For further details, I was able to gather information from the drainage database that we use, as well as talking with the contractors, landowners, and Houston Engineering. And something to keep in mind, these are all extra job duties in addition to regular tasks, especially as the information technology person for Rice Creek Watershed District. So we've got all these unexpected factors, right? And, but we still have these other factors, weather, landowners, timelines in our normal years. And so these factors have been exacerbated by all the other stuff that we're, going through this year. Luckily, the weather has not been terrible this year. And thankfully, it hasn't caused too many delays. And it really hasn't been as limiting as it has been in the last few years. However, this year, more so than others, communications with landowners is really important. A lot of people are stuck at home and, they have time that they didn't normally have to take an interest, where they just didn't have that time before COVID. So, now there's even more, a greater need for communication with landowners before, during, and after a project. And, the communication is really important when it comes to the timelines, because with the COVID outbreak and with the staffing change, the timelines on these smaller maintenance projects, they really have been impacted. But, fortunately, the work is still getting done. It's, we really like to think, and it'd be great that we have these projects and we just go out and we fix it and it's done. And that'd be great, but that's not public, drainage system management. It's not as easy as go fix it, it's done. And that means that it takes a lot longer to get stuff done. We're looking at, we have to first identify the problem and, how can the problem be fixed? Sometimes it's a fairly easy fix. Other times, not so much. We have to get a little bit more creative, and it's okay. Now we have a plan to, how to fix it. How do we put a plan in place to get it fixed? Because we're looking at large amounts of information, to put together this plan, and it has to consider the site history, other agencies, and landowner communication, and then, so now you got a plan, but you got to find a contractor that's willing to do it. And I've got one who's willing, but are they available? Contractors are actually incredibly busy. And, getting on their schedule, it is, something that we have to deal with. Once we finally got a contractor on the hook, now we have to hope the weather cooperates. And, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and now with the staffing change, there's only one person to do this. Beth has quoted, it's like coordinating a wedding for a princess. It's all got to line up. It's got to be perfect. And it's really just got to work in our favor. So, what are the public drainage system priorities? And it's really, my priority here is balancing public drainage system needs with the other watershed management plan priorities. For me, district facilities and information technology. Technology needs didn't really take up too much time pre-COVID. A new computer here, fix some software there, minor stuff, but with COVID, technology needs have just become so, more important than ever to keep staff available and connected and working efficiently. And so, we got technology and that's great. And, but district facilities are also ramping up. We're doing routine inspections and routine maintenance, and that adds to a very full workload, of public drainage already. And then you've got all of these, and then you throw on all the other factors that we just discussed. So it's, it builds up, But, you know, we're getting through it. So how? What strategies and tools, you know, are we using as the ground has shifted? You know, how have we adapted? The Watershed Management Plan, we're going to go back to it. It's a great tool. It provides structure, it provides guidance, you know, for implementing, you know, the public drainage program as well as district facilities and all the other programs. And it's the backdrop for everything we do. So we got to give it some cred. Rice Creek Watershed District is very fortunate in that it has, you know, I'll say it's a great drainage team. And, you know, right before the spring staffing change, staff actually began bi-weekly drainage team coordination meetings. I continue coordinating these meetings and find that, you know, not only does it help keep, you know, everyone on the same page, but it really allows for that, you know, group, holistic, collective thinking, collaboration, and problem solving. You know, and these meetings are just that more helpful in the COVID-19 setting. You know, I have a great example to follow when it comes to working with constituents and other stakeholders on drainage issues, as well as, you know, continuing to advocate for the drainage rights of benefited landowners. And, you know, it wouldn't be necessarily as possible, you know, without such a great staff and a supportive board. So, you know, what can we learn from all of this going on? How do we increase the strength of the public drainage program, or at least, you know, continue to drive excellence during this particular time? You know, this, you know, it's kind of there's a silver lining. You know, don't let the crisis go to waste. You know, the key is going to be break down silos and make sure all staff can support and assist each other. You know, communication and cross training with staff, it continues to be really important, especially in this time with COVID and everyone being separate. It improves communications with landowners, between staff, and with the board. And so when we're all on the same page, all the district programs benefit from this. You know, I'll shout out to Kyle. You know, he's overseeing some of the district facilities projects from the water management plan, and, you know, regulatory staff have been really good at communicating with me and us, you know, discussing when permit inquiries come up along public drainage systems or near district facilities. So, you know, we all have to be better versed in each other's positions to know when we can communicate on a topic and when it's time to redirect to another resource. So I've been going on and on about implementation and how did we get to where we are, but what have we done, right? That's the stuff we want to know, right? So here's a list of stuff that has been completed since the spring. Just kind of brief topics. I'll touch on all of them. ACD 102232 this spring, we did beaver trapping and dam removal. This is kind of a hotspot beaver area anyways, so continue to monitor the area, and the upstream landowner is scheduled to get a phone call. So Anoka, Washington, Judicial Ditch 3, again, more beaver trapping, dam removal. The beavers, for a third time in the last year or two, had built a dam that was holding about 2 feet of water back. So that was nice to get that water down, because then the big JD3 repair was able to come through and have more manageable water levels. Anoka Ramsey, Judicial Ditch 1, the city of Blaine completed work along their trail system that runs alongside the ditch. They did tree work and some excavation work. And so the city of Blaine has been a great partner and very attentive to ensuring that not only the public ditches, but the private ditches are maintained in their city. We've also completed annual mowing of a few district-owned easements. This includes the Walls Brothers Conservation Easement just south of Browns Preserve, which brings me to Browns Preserve prescribed burn. That was a routine maintenance item that was scheduled to happen last fall. And then, surprise, surprise, it got too wet. And so thankfully the spring was dry enough that the burn crews were able to get out there and complete the burn. So ongoing and planned. Again, I'll just kind of touch on each one briefly. These are kind of the big picture, big ticket items. The E2 wetland structure, that's an in process. We pulled boards out this spring, found that the structure that housed the boards was full of water, one, and then two, was also full of debris, sticks, cattail mats. It's incredible what fits through a 24-inch pipe into this box. And so we've been unable to replace the boards because of water levels bouncing when it rains, and then debris filling the box back in. And so I'm currently working with the contractor to construct a floating kind of boom structure similar to what we've done in other areas to prevent any future debris entering the box, and then we'll replace those boards. JD7 tile replacement, again, in process. We've started this one. I continue working with the contractor to reroute the drain tile around a stand of trees to get it to the outlet. This is one of the last sections on that system that is getting repaired. JD5 outlet and repair. This is something that staff had begun actually last year, and did a site survey, kind of walked through it, and found a lot. You've seen some of the pictures of the drain tile just sitting on top, floating around. So that one is still on the books to get done this fall. 10/22/32 Pine Street Columbus work. That is scheduled to start in the coming weeks. That is being coordinated with the city of Columbus as well. Anoka, Washington, JD3 coordination, that continues. That project is moving forward. I continue to represent Rice Creek as the owner of the project. On site, I pop out, take a look, I answer questions when needed, and work with Houston Engineering on that one. ACD 5362 repair, kind of a similar to JD3. It's one of the bigger repair systems. Houston coordinates most of it, but I help, we're coordinating between the city and Houston and us to make sure that that one moves forward as well. That one's in its final repair report stages. So, in addition to some of these projects listed on the slide, I'm still inspecting public drainage systems and facilities, and communicating with landowners, and completing project oversight, pre and post construction, as well as during construction. For all of these, I'll be on site overseeing construction. So, obviously we're still adjusting to COVID-19, and it's required some changes, but we are adapting, and I will say once again, Rice Creek is fortunate, and it has a great drainage team, and everyone has been very supportive, and we're adapting to the current staffing situation as well. And, we don't know any timelines, but regardless, we are seeing an increased need to address the growing priority list in public drainage and facilities, and the crossover to other district programs. The challenges. Okay. Very similar to factors affecting everything, right? But so what are the challenges that we've been facing? I'll admit, it's a constant effort to prioritize projects and reassure constituents that no, we haven't forgotten about you. I promise, it's still on the list. It's coming. Just be patient, please. It's just as frustrating, on our end as it is on theirs. At the beginning of 2020, I was managing the contractor pool efforts. However, at this point, we have had to scale back on some of those contractor pool projects because of, the higher priorities and just the change in staff capacity. And then there's the never-ending challenges of traditional public drainage work. These public drainage systems are getting used more and more frequently as municipal outlets. We get more water in, that leads to more maintenance. And it's all about educating landowners, getting them the knowledge they need, and hopefully some acceptance to make sure all while we're managing their expectations. And then obviously finding local contractors for day labor. Ditch work is not pretty, and it's messy, and it is not maybe the work that everyone runs to right away to, yes, let's go get muddy and dirty and sink a backhoe in the swamp. So, we're working around all of those. So, looking forward, how are we addressing this? We're going to continue to prioritize based on the watershed management plan, balancing public drainage systems and district facilities. We're going to keep pushing forward with construction and closing out projects. And it's, I'm going to continue doing public drainage systems inspections and district facility inspections. And, some of these inspections are routine, and some of them are just areas that we know there's problems. We're going to go out and check on them. And others are going to get prioritized by landowner call-ins and concerns. And, I'll shout out to the landowners that, do express their concerns, because I can't be everywhere at once. We've got 180 plus square miles. And so it's helpful to have those extra eyes in the field, instead of having to, you physically can't be everywhere at once. So with all the inspections and projects, I continue to update the online public drainage database. We continue to have the drainage team meetings. We meet every other week, just so that we all stay on the same page. And we make sure that all of the projects continue moving forward and nothing gets left behind. And lastly, building on that staff collaboration to break down the silos and really strive for that excellence in our communication with landowners and with other stakeholders. And there's a lot of history between public drainage systems and the Rice Creek Watershed District, and you have to appreciate it. And it's important that, staff understand and work together as we work into the future. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to let me share this update. It's not too often that I get to give an update to the board. So I'm really proud with what not only we've been able to do, but with what I've been able to do and accomplish this year. I really strongly feel that it is the strength of the public drainage system program that has allowed us to be so resilient and keep our momentum with everything that's going on. So just thank you once again.
Thank you, Ashley. Any members of the board like to comment or ask Ashley a question?
This is Manager Wagam. I just have a comment. I thought that was an excellent presentation and very informative. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Ashley. You're doing well. Your team is missing a member, so do you need some extra help? I remember when you joined the team and provided a lot of help. You basically began with the computer updates and the record keeping, and then worked out into the field.
Yep.
So maybe you're kind of lonely out there, and have they thought about how to give you an assistant like we did with the in the previous situation there for your bi-weekly team there? I'll leave that up for the administrator to answer another time. He doesn't have to tell me today, but I don't want to see the roster on the drainage team go empty.
President Preiner.
Go ahead.
I would like to respond now and certainly in the future as things develop. As Ashley notes, projects are proceeding. And when we do we're down a staff person, as Ashley noted, and I'm really working to try to have a team effort in all the things we do. Not in a necessarily negative way. I'll say historically, I think the district has probably been a bit siloed, is the term that I think is routinely used, and we stick to our business. But to strengthen us, having an understanding of what each of those silos does and breaking them down adds strength to the team, and so that our efforts are coordinated. So to Manager Waller's question or general inquiry, I would say the phone calls that come in, for example, we would typically see Anna and Kelsey in the regulatory side. They may field calls that deal with public drainage systems. Now, they need sufficient information to hear the landowner, take in the information, and from there, go to the professional, which would be Ashley in the public drainage system. And so she does have that support, I would say. Recently, we had a item on a public drainage system. I think it was JD3, and Terrence, one of our inspectors on the regulatory team, was available for coverage, being that landowner representative or to work with Houston on the construction element side of it when Ashley was busy elsewhere. So some of that coordination, I think, is helpful in providing support to Ashley. Being down a staff person is less than ideal, and typically how we expand that is we move into our consultants and let them or ask them to be the shock absorber, if you will, of dealing with some of that additional work that isn't covered by staff. So that's kind of a long-term effort, but I think you'll see it. Further to Manager Waller's question, and also tied into the budget, you have a ever-increasing funding direction in your watershed management plan for the public drainage system. We've taken on certainly a greater responsibility for the systems through the years, but added in the public facilities that we've established. And so how we spend those dollars will be important. And I would say it's not lost on me that additional staff might be part of that equation. And beyond that, ensuring that contractor pool or the lack of it, maybe, that we're attentive to the Moby track or whatever items we need. Are we going to do the mowing of these in the future? Are we going to, of the system edges, now that we've done all this tree clearing, do we have a solid pool of contractors to do it and that sort of thing? We're getting by, but I think Ashley used the term resiliency, which is kind of a buzzword now in water resources, but as things ebb and flow and change over time, we want to be able to be solid in our the function of our systems. Thank you.
Madam President?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Ashley, I think he said yes to the question, do you need help? I think he did.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Ashley, on your slide, you said that because of COVID, supplies were in short supply. Are those personal protective items or?
No, I would say, I mean, even the construction industry it's been impacted.
Can't hear ya.
To get supplies, is what you're saying.
I can't hear Ashley.
Why not?
Try it again.
I don't know. That's weird.
Can everyone else hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you're on now.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So I would say the supplies is really more on construction materials. We've been lucky for the most part. We've been able to get pipes when we need them, but it's something that I think we're only going to see